In the 50-year history of Arizona State volleyball, tonight might be one of the most significant nights in program history, as for just the third time ever and for the first time since 1995, ASU is back in the regional semifinal round of the NCAA tournament, as they take on a familiar foe in the Stanford Cardinal and return to one of the most hallowed grounds in collegiate volleyball, possibly for the last time for a while, Maples Pavilion. ASU comes in with significant momentum as one of the hottest teams in the country in this tournament, as ASU already swept their first two opponents in Georgia and BYU in the first two rounds. However, for Stanford, they were nearly reverse swept in this very gym by the 8-seed Houston Cougars last Saturday, and Stanford will need to recalibrate their momentum if they want to have an opportunity at another national title. But if the Sun Devils were to possibly defeat the Cardinal for a second time this season and for the first time here in this pavilion in quite some time, it would be ASU's possibly most significant win in program history and would put them at a place in the NCAA tournament that they've never been before, the Elite Eight. Reporting from outside Maples Pavilion here in the heart of Stanford University, Max Zepeda, Cronkite Sports.
Top plays on this St. Patrick's CSL as Hubert Koss here at number 3, setting the NCAA record at the Pac-12 Championships in Seattle in the 200 backstroke with a time of 1:35.69 seconds. One of 4 conference titles won by him over the weekend.
Some more conference championships. Colton Schultz earns a pin over Oregon State's Boone McDermott, becoming the 7th all-time wrestler to win 4 Pac-12 championships. It's the heavyweight right there.
And at number 1, we go from conference titles to national titles. A 4x400 relay. Justin Robinson, Caleb Simpson, Jaden Davis, and Kamali Felix setting a new school record. 3 minutes and 2 seconds, 2.31 seconds to be exact. ASU able to secure a national title in men's indoor and track for the first time in 2 years. But you're absolutely right, Ben. I think a lot of us would agree that ASU Olympic sports have certainly been outpacing the major sports, but baseball and softball still on the diamond, still a lot of time left in their seasons to see if they can turn things around.
And it seemed immediately that Jackson Niedermeyer, who scored 2 weeks ago against this Big Red defense, 2 weeks later does so again, this time in the game-tying goal. I mean, he was clearly saying as he was coming back to the bench, he's like, I am him. I can take us there. And obviously, this is a huge confidence booster considering this is a guy who's on the 4th line for Arizona State tonight. So it'll be very interesting to see if either that 3rd line that we talked about, Eric, pregame before this period, or that 1st line, Matthew Copper, you mentioned it, Dylan. He not only leads this team in game-winning goals, he leads the country in game-winning goals. So either one of those two or that 1st or 3rd line could be the key offensively for Arizona State to pull off, once again, another upset comeback win against the Big Red.
But all of a sudden Pac-12 play starts and it's the same thing as last year where things kind of just start falling apart.
No, absolutely. In conference play, they have really fallen apart, specifically on the offensive end. They're only averaging 53.8 points per game, the lowest in the pack, 31.8% from the field. That's 6% less, Ben, than every other team in the Pac-12. So very much offense not going so well. And by the way, you may remember after those first 5 losses in conference play, one of those, their most recent one being, in fact, at Oregon State. Their one conference win all season last year. This year, they lose by 37 in Corvallis.
Let's talk about Pac-12 play. We get to talk about it every single week on this show. It's the final season for the Pac, and for women's basketball, it's historically been probably the best conference in the country. Do the Sun Devils really have any hope in the last season in the Pac, or are they just trying to make some final memories and get on over to the Big 12?
Well, Ben, I think one player that I think a lot of Sun Devil fans should keep an eye on to possibly get some intrigue for the stock, maybe even for next year into the Big 12, is sophomore guard Jalen Brown. Since she transferred from Louisville, she has been the offensive focal point for ASU women's hoops, averaging 21.2 points per game in Pac-12 play, the second most of any player in the conference in conference play. And you may remember, Ben, a career high 35 points in a loss to number 3 Colorado just 2 weeks ago, the most points scored by a Sun Devil in a single game in the 21st century. So certainly some future hopes look to possibly be lying, even though this ASU women's team all season is averaging losing games by 11.4 points per game margin. That's obviously the worst in the conference. So Jalen Brown certainly could be someone to look forward to as the team now heads to the Pacific Northwest this weekend in what will be their final time traveling to the Washington schools.
Traveling across the globe to play collegiate sports is a major commitment made by thousands of students across the country, with some going above and beyond to make that dream possible. For Arizona State outside hitter Roberta Rebelo, that dream came true in 2020. And after helping her club team finish second in the Brazilian Cup, including winning MVP of the tournament, she arrived in Tempe noticing not just a drastically different volleyball culture, but sports culture as a whole.
But I think in the US, it was the impact of the sports in general, like the culture of sports here. Like people recognize you, oh, are you in the volleyball team, you know? People know you are an athlete because of your backpack. Because here people appreciate much more than in Brazil. Like if I say that I played volleyball in Brazil, they will be like, oh, this is nice, you know, like just for fun. And I'm like, no, I actually want to be a professional.
However, she was not alone. ASU had grown accustomed to welcoming stout international talents like Sun Devil alum Imani Sanovic and her fellow teammate Marta Levinska. But for Rebelo, she saw them as people to lean on in adjusting to the States and the student-athlete life.
I think it's very important to have like these shoulders to cry on. It is hard, you know, and not everyone will understand that because they're from here and they see their parents like for Thanksgiving, Easter, Christmas, you know, but like for us it's a little more complicated than that.
And it wasn't just the sports culture that opened Rebelo's eyes when she arrived in the US, but also her love for exploring the world. Since arriving in the States, she has traveled to 15 nations across the globe and even found love in the process, a love that also involves her school's longest-lasting rival.
Me and my boyfriend, we met here. He goes to U of A, so he's my rival. Like his background and his family are also are very similar to mine, and like exploring and like getting to know the world.
Rebelo's passion remains as high as ever on the court, and as she has seen the Sun Devils evolve in her 4 years, from Pac-12 basement dwellers to championship contenders, she has seized a major leadership role in head coach J.J. Van Niel's locker room, one that true freshman Hokulani Perez has taken note of.
Especially like these girls like Marta, Rob, and Jelly, you can tell that they've been through so much growth, not just like performance-wise, but like, you know, myself-wise.
In the end, this weekend will be the final home stint for Rebelo's time in uniform. And while her time as a Sun Devil may be coming to an end soon, she plans to continue being involved in the sport, either professionally or even as a mentor here in Tempe.
It was a night made for Tinseltown inside the Galen Center Friday night, as the stars were out to witness the final meeting in the City of Angels between Arizona State and number 10 ranked USC. And for the women of Troy, it was another night on the job for their incredible season, as they dominated the Sun Devils 81-63. This effort was led heavily by freshman superstar Juju Watkins, who allocated another 31 points on Friday, along with 7 rebounds and 5 assists, marking it Watkins' 8th game in her debut season to feature 30 or more points. A unique and extraordinary talent that ASU head coach Natasha Adair believes is great for the future of the sport.
Juju's a phenomenal player. I mean, to be a freshman, you know, with her skill set, with her IQ, but having coached as long as I have, you know, I've been blessed to coach those types of players that are now in the WNBA. Women's basketball is winning. And the fact that we're talking about phenomenal players like Ice, phenomenal players like Jaden, like Juju, that's what we want to keep doing. And I have the luxury of coaching these special kids.
Meanwhile, as the defense struggled against those like Watkins for most of the night, the offense for the most part relied on 3 of the only 7 Sun Devils that played Friday night, as Jalen Brown, Triana Crisp, and Jaden Simmons combined for 53 of ASU's 63 total points, a stat line that Adair believes does not reflect a season-long identity in her squad.
Well, I think the versatility of our team is key. You know, I will never limit our team and our offense to 3 players. We just take pride in the fact that everyone's an option. It's just whatever the opening is that night, be confident to take it, and our players took it tonight.
And while it may seem to the naked eye that the Sun Devils only had 3 true offensive producers tonight against the Trojans, it will be intriguing to see if the depth of the Sun Devils can possibly be seen going forward, especially on Sunday afternoon, when they head to Pauley Pavilion to take on one of the arguably deepest rosters in all of women's collegiate basketball, and the number 9 ranked Lady Bruins of UCLA.
After a rocky first year in Tempe, filled with an injury-riddled roster and an incredibly difficult schedule, Arizona State football now sits in the midst of its first true offseason under Kenny Dillingham. And as he assessed the comparison between the months after his hiring to today, Dillingham explained the differences between the 2 recruiting cycles the only way he knows how.
So I think this year, now that we've been here, we've recruited, we now aren't just filling a roster, we're filling needs. We know what we need. We needed size, right, was number one. We needed speed, we needed depth, right? So I think we assessed those needs. So last year was just like, put food on the table. This year is like, no, we have a starch, right? We need a vegetable, right? That's how I would say the difference is.
2023 was the table-setting year, but now 2024 brings the need for desert-sized ingredients, which arrived in abundance. In his second recruiting season as head coach, Dillingham was able to acquire a recruiting class that included 17 three-stars, but were only able to achieve luring one four-star from high school to the program, that being running back Jason Brown. The 5'10", 205-pound back out of Seattle, Washington was rated as the 16th best running back in the country by the 247 Sports Composite Ranking, and will look to fill out a running back room that will miss the presence of last year's graduate transfer sensation, Cam Scadaboo. On the other hand, in the first transfer portal experience under Dillingham, the Sun Devils were able to lure 18 more three-star players to Tempe, tied for second most by any program in the country. But more importantly, 2 four-stars also accepted the opportunity to join ASU's rebuilding expedition. Sophomore running back Raleek Brown of USC and freshman defensive back Cole Martin of Oregon both are coming off of seasons with little impact to their teams, but now will bring their much-desired potential to a locker room in need of support at those position groups. In the end, these are just a few of the many new faces in the Valley, and soon they will begin to showcase their skills for all to see this spring football season, as Dillingham's Devils look to prepare for a 2024 season filled with new beginnings, and are ready to be the ingredients necessary for hungry Sun Devil fans.
But like, talk about that, because like, as someone who is an aspiring journalist who wants to cover sports nationally, to see a conference that you've grown up with your entire life basically disseminate as you're in college, and then realize like halfway through your collegiate journey that you're going to spend the majority of your time covering a conference that includes states like Texas, Iowa, Kansas, West Virginia, Florida. I mean, like, do you see that as an opportunity, or do you feel like that there's still going to be like, when you step on a football field in Orlando or in Morgantown or in Manhattan or in Ames, like, are you going to step on the field and be like, kind of like that Rose Bowl feeling where it's like, oh, like this is my life? Or are you going to be like this feels odd? Like, I know, and no one should feel odd walking on a football field as a reporter. No one should ever feel that. But like, is it going to feel different when you have that feeling next year?
It's 100% going to feel different. It's not going to be the same. I've literally grown up wanting to go around the Pac-12 and explore all these wonderful places like Berkeley, like Palo Alto, like Seattle, like Pullman. I've grown up watching all these places on TV, and that's why I came to Cronkite also, is because it was a Pac-12 school. And so like my entire college decision and like everything and like being able to cover sports in the Pac-12 kind of revolved around this. So it's definitely going to be a curveball I wasn't expecting when I initially came here. And I'm never going to change it for the world. Like, I'm so glad I'm here at Cronkite.
Yeah.
I definitely wish the Pac-12 was still alive.